Hello everyone, in this video we'll be discussing about nucleus as a part of our discussion of cell biology. So let's start with the scientists, those who have contributed in the research of nucleus. There are two scientists. The first one is Robert Brown. He was a scientist who discovered nucleus in the year 1831. Few years you need to remember just because they are mentioned in NCERT. First of all, remember that in 1831 Robert Brown discovered nucleus. Then 7 years later, that means in 1838, a botanist named Sheldon came and said that plants are made up of different types of cells and these cells come together to form different tissues. Then in the next year, 1839, a zoologist named Schwann came and said that animal cells are bounded by a membrane which is now known as plasma membrane, and he was also the scientist who told that cell wall is a unique characteristics of plants. So Schwann gave these two things. First was the plasma membrane and the second thing was about the cell membrane. Then in year 1855 a scientist named Rudolf Virchow came and said that new cells are formed from the pre-existing cells. He gave a theory called omnis cellula e cellula. So together these three scientists gave cell theory. So these are the 4 years you need to remember which are mentioned in NCERT in context to cell biology. The second scientist who contributed in the research of nucleus was Fleming. He was a scientist who stained nuclear material with basic dyes. The dyes used were basic, not acidic, and the thing which got stained was later called as chromosome. So if the question comes, who was the first scientist who stained chromosomes, the answer is Fleming. Now let's see the cell cycle. Cell cycle is divided into two phases. The first one is called as interphase, which takes more than 95% of the time of cell cycle. So more than 95% of the duration of cell cycle is interphase, in which it is also called as resting phase because no true division is taking place. But this is not true, just because the cell when is in interphase, it is preparing for cell division in terms of two things. First of all, the cell is continuously growing, that is cell growth is taking place, and the second thing is DNA replication is taking place in interphase. So we can't say that the cell is in resting phase, but being a name given to this phase, that interphase is also called as resting phase, that's why it is called as resting phase. The second phase is mitosis phase, in which the replicated DNA is split into two daughter cells, and this is the true division which is occurring during the cell cycle. Now let's talk about the nucleus of this phase, the interphase nucleus. Interphase nucleus has three components. The first one is chromatin. So how will we describe chromatin? Chromatin is described as highly extended, elaborate nucleoprotein fibers. So these are extended nucleoprotein fibers. When chromatin is condensed, it forms chromosomes, and chromosomes were first stained by scientist Fleming. So you need to make a map in your mind to remember things. The second thing in interphase nucleus is nuclear matrix, which is also called as nucleoplasm. Just like cellular matrix is called cytoplasm, similarly nuclear matrix is called as nucleoplasm. And the third thing is it has nucleoli, which are spherical bodies, and the number of nucleoli could be one or more than one depending upon the metabolic rates of the cell, whether the cell is dividing or is at rest. So let's see this diagram showing us the nucleus. In a nucleus, the outermost layer is called as nuclear envelope. The nuclear matrix is called as nucleoplasm, and inside nucleoplasm we have two things. The first thing is called as chromatin, which is an elaborate nucleoprotein fibers, and the second thing is nucleolus, which is spherical structures which may be one or more than one depending upon whether the cell is dividing or not. And inside nuclear envelope we have few openings known as nuclear pore. We'll study that what is the use of this nuclear pore. It is used for the transfer of materials from the cytoplasm into the nucleoplasm and from nucleoplasm to the cytoplasm. Mostly RNA and proteins have a transit between cytoplasm and nucleus. So that these two things move from these pores called nuclear pores. Now let's talk about this envelope, nuclear envelope. Of course, if we are studying something of the organelle, for that we use new electron microscope. These microscopes have high magnification. So let's talk about nuclear envelope. It is made up of two parallel membranes. Two parallel membranes, one is the outer one and of course one is the inner one, with perinuclear space between them. So between the outer membrane and the inner membrane, the space is known as perinuclear space, and we need to remember the dimensions of this. This is 10 to 50 nanometer in size. The perinuclear space is 10 to 50 nanometer in size. And now let's talk about what is the function of nuclear envelope. It forms a barrier between materials present inside the nucleus and which are present in the cytoplasm. Of course, it is separating nucleus from the rest of the cytoplasm. And now let's see what are the special features of the outer membrane of nucleus. The outer membrane of nucleus remains in continuation of endoplasmic reticulum, which is the highway of cell, just because it forms an elaborate network inside the cytoplasm. And sometimes the outer membrane of nucleus can also bear ribosomes on it. So the two specific features of outer membrane of nucleus are, first of all, the outer membrane of nucleus is in continuation with the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and the second thing is sometimes the nuclear membrane, outer nuclear membrane, can bear ribosomes on it. Ribosomes are the protein factory of the cell, Now let's see this diagram, which will make you understand that the nuclear envelope is in continuation with the rough endoplasmic reticulum. This is easily visible that the nuclear envelope is in continuation with the structure called as rough endoplasmic reticulum, and also there might be some ribosomes present on this outer nuclear membrane. So these are the two things you need to remember about the outer nuclear membrane. Now let's see about the pores which are present in the nuclear membrane. These are called as nuclear pores, and these are present on the nuclear envelope. Of course, they are formed by fusion of the two nuclear membranes. Let me explain you this point. So if we have an outer membrane and an inner membrane, so let me use different colors for different membranes. The inner membrane is represented by blue color, whereas the outer membrane is represented by a red color. So whensoever these two membranes fuse, they form pores which are known as nuclear pores. And as I have already told you that these are used for the transit of materials from inside to cytoplasm and from cytoplasm to the inside of nucleus. So let's see what is the use of this. First of all, we have learned that nuclear pores are present on nuclear envelope. Second thing, these are formed by fusion of two nuclear membranes, that is the outer membrane and the inner nuclear membrane fuse to form nuclear pores. And now the third thing, what is the function of these nuclear pores? These are for passage of bidirectional movement, that is from nucleus to cytoplasm and from cytoplasm to the nucleus. And two things which are mostly rotating between nucleus and cytoplasm are RNA, and second thing is protein molecules. RNA and protein molecules are generally moved via these nuclear pores. So let us see about the number of nucleus in a cell. Generally, each cell has only a single nucleus within it, but there are few exceptions in cells in which there are multiple nucleuses present, and few cells are also present in which there is no nucleus present. You need to remember that nucleus is the chief controller of the cell. For example, if we say cell is a country, so nucleus is the president of that country. It controls everything within that cell. So let us see that the number of nucleus is variable. Generally, we have one nucleus per cell, but there are few examples of multinucleated cells. Let us see them first. The first one is fungi. In lower fungi of class Phycomycetes, for example, Rhizopus and Mucor, we have seen that they have cenocytic hyphae. That means a hyphae in which there is no septae present. The septa walls are absent. Therefore, the nucleus present inside them is present in the common cytoplasm, giving it a multinucleated shape. The second example is algae. Algae, the example is Chara, which is a green algae. Chara also has multinucleated cytoplasm. Now the third example is up from protozoa. The example is Paramecium, which looks like a slipper. So Paramecium also can have multiple nucleus within it, and Paramecium is a part of kingdom Protista. It is unicellular eukaryotic organism. Another example from kingdom Protista is from slime molds. Example is Plasmodium. Slime molds, Plasmodium is a fungi like protist. That is, it has all the characteristics of fungi, but being unicellular, it was thrown into kingdom Protista. And the last example, which we are all familiar with, the skeletal muscle cells of animals have multinucleated structure because of the connection between the cytoplasm of the adjacent muscle cells. Now let us see the examples of cells which lack nucleus. Then people ask that if they lack the chief controller of the cell, then how they are living? So let us prove the cells which lack nucleus but still are living. First example is erythrocytes, which are the RBC, red blood cells of many mammals. They lack nucleus. And the second example from the plants is sieve tube cells, which are a part of phloem tissue. The tissue which is a plant uses for the transport of food within itself. So first of all, let's explain why RBCs are called as living. RBCs have their metabolism, that is, reactions are taking place inside them. They can change their shape. They are bounded by a plasma membrane, and they have lifespan of 120 days. So we have 4 points in favor telling that RBCs, though they lack nucleus, but they are living. And the second example of sieve tube cells, we say that sieve tube cells have a very best friend of them, that is companion cells. Companion cell says, bro, chill, if you lack nucleus, you can use my nucleus for your purpose. So the nucleus of companion cells control the functional activity of sieve tube cells. We can see this in this diagram. So if we see the diagram, this is showing us 2 cells. One is the sieve tube cell and the other one is companion cell. You can see them, they are connected via branched plasmodesmata. Plasmodesmata is a connection between the cell walls of adjacent cells, and the nucleus of companion cell, you can see there is no nucleus in sieve tube cell. So the nucleus of companion cells control the functions of sieve tube cells. So this was the example, 2 examples in which nucleus is absent. The first one is erythrocyte and the second one is sieve tube cells. Now let us revise the multinucleated cells. First of all, example came from fungi, kingdom fungi, in which the lower fungi had multinucleated cells. The example is Rhizopus and Mucor. Second, we have example from algae. The green algae named Chara has multinucleated cytoplasm. Then third example is from kingdom Protista. The example is Paramecium. Fourth example again from kingdom Protista, that is slime molds. And fifth one is the most studied example, that is human or say animals skeletal muscle cells. Now let us read about nucleoplasm. Nucleoplasm is the nuclear matrix similar to like cytoplasm, that is a cellular matrix. It contains 2 important things. One is the nucleolus and the second one is chromatin. Nucleolus is a spherical structure which can vary from 1 to more than 1 in number depending upon whether the cell is dividing or not. The second thing is chromatin. Chromatin is nucleoprotein fibers which are elaborately distributed within the within the nucleoplasm. Again showing you the same diagram in which you can see that nucleoplasm has 2 important things. One is the chromatin and the second one is nucleolus. Nucleolus, you can easily see this red color structure present in the center of the nucleus, which is called as nucleolus. Now let us read about nucleoli. Nucleoli, or if you say singular nucleolus, is a spherical structure present in a nucleoplasm. Its contents are continuous with the rest of the nucleoplasm since it does not has its own membrane. So the contents of nucleolus is in continuation with that of nucleoplasm. It does not has its own membrane, and it is a site for active ribosomal RNA synthesis. The most important point you need to remember about nucleolus is that it is a site for active ribosomal RNA synthesis. So let me brief you with the types of ribosomes. We have three important types of RNA. The first one is mRNA, which is also called messenger RNA. Its main role is because it encodes proteins. The second RNA is rRNA, which is ribosomal RNA. That is, it forms the ribosomes. So this rRNA is formed within nucleolus. You need to remember this. And the third most important RNA is tRNA, that is transfer RNA. It acts as an adapter between mRNA and amino acids in the process of translation, which we'll be studying in class 12th under genetics topic. So you need to remember that there are three important types. There are other types also, small nuclear RNA, hcRNA, other RNAs also are present, but three examples you need to remember about RNA. First is mRNA, messenger RNA, encodes protein. Second one is rRNA, which is ribosomal RNA, it forms ribosomes. And the third thing is tRNA, which is transfer RNA, which acts as an adapter between mRNA and amino acids. So nucleoli is a site for ribosomal RNA synthesis, ribosomal RNA, that is rRNA synthesis. Okay. And now another important thing, that larger and more numerous nucleoli are present in cells actively carrying out protein synthesis. The number of nucleoli in nucleus is variable. It can be one, mostly one, and it can be more than one also, depending whether the cell is actively involved in protein synthesis or not. So let's recap nucleoli. Nucleoli is one of the structure present in the nucleoplasm, the other one being the chromatin. Nucleoli is a spherical structure. Its contents are in continuation with the nucleoplasm just because it does not have its own membrane. It is a site for active ribosomal RNA, rRNA synthesis, and its number is variable. Its number increases in the cells which are actively involved in protein synthesis. So these points you need to remember about nucleoli, and the singular word for nucleoli is nucleolus. Now let's talk about DNA packaging. DNA packaging, first of all, in interphase nucleus we have chromatins. Chromatin is loose indistinct network of nucleoprotein. But during different stages of cell division, cell shows a structured chromosomes. So this chromatin is converted into chromosomes. Let's see the process. First of all, let's know what things are present in chromatin. Chromatin has four important things within itself. Chromatin, being loose nucleoprotein fibers, contains four things. The first one is DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. The second thing is basic proteins, which are called as histone proteins. Histone proteins, which are basic proteins. Now third thing is non-histone proteins. Some proteins which were not like histone proteins were named as non-histone proteins. And the fourth one is RNA, ribonucleic acid. Now let us see the journey of packaging of chromatin into chromosomes. We'll study this diagram for this. First of all, we can see that there is a DNA strand, deoxyribonucleic acid strand. When this DNA wraps around histone proteins, it forms a structure called as nucleosomes. DNA plus histone proteins. Histone proteins are the basic proteins. These together combine to form nucleosomes. You can see that histones are represented by this spherical structure. When the DNA strand wraps around it, this is the DNA strand wrapping around this histone proteins. When it wraps around this forms a unit. This unit is together called as nucleosome. So DNA, when combines with histone, forms nucleosomes. These nucleosomes condense. When they condense, they form chromatin fiber. We have already discussed that chromatin fibers contains four important things. First one is DNA, then histone proteins, then non-histone proteins, and the fourth one is RNA. This chromatin further condenses in different shapes and ultimately results into formation of chromosomes. So the packaging of DNA is clear to you. First of all, DNA combines with histone proteins to form nucleosomes. Nucleosomes condense to form chromatin. Chromatin further condense to form chromosomes. And you need to remember that we have human cell has 23 pairs of chromosomes. Now one more important thing, that chromosomes are visible only in dividing cells. If the cell is dividing, then only you can see this chromosome. Otherwise, in a non-dividing cell, you only see chromatin. That is an elaborate widespread network of nucleoprotein fibers. A single human cell has around 2-meter long thread of DNA. In a cell which is a eukaryotic cell, we have already discussed in the diagram of NCERT that it is from the size of 10 to 20 micrometer. In a cell of this much size, we have 2-meter long, 1 meter is this much. So 2-meter long thread of DNA. So how can a 2-meter long thread of DNA entrap in a cell which is only 10 to 20 micrometer in length? It is just because of this significant packing of DNA, compaction of DNA. Okay, and it is distributed into 46 chromosomes. 46 chromosomes, or you can say 23 pair of chromosomes in human cells. Now let's discuss about the structure of chromosomes. In that we'll be discussing about two important structure. First one is centromere and the second one is kinetochores. Let's see the diagram of a chromosome in which we can see a central constriction. This constriction is called as centromere region of the chromosome, and the plates surrounding this region are called as kinetochores. This is the place, at this plate spindle fiber attach. This is the place for spindle fiber attachment that pulls the chromosome during cell division. So let's learn about the important facts about centromeres. First of all, it is called as primary constriction and it is present in every chromosome. So what is the function of this primary constriction? It has a role of holding two chromatids of the chromosome. So what do you mean by chromatid? Chromatid means the identical half of the chromosome that is made during the replication of the DNA. So if we split this chromosome from the center, see if I draw a line between this center, so there are one and second, two halves formed. So these halves individually are called as chromatids of the chromosome. So the role of centromere is to hold these two chromatids together. So at this place of primary constriction, these two identical segments of the chromosome are held together. So three important things you need to remember about centromere is, first of all, it is called as primary constriction. Second, it is present in every cell. Third, every chromosome. And third point is, it has a function of holding the two chromatids of a chromosome together. Now let's know about the kinetochore. Kinetochore is a disc-shaped structure, as already mentioned, and it is present on the sides of centromere. So what is the function of kinetochores? Kinetochore plates have the function that spindle fibers attach to this plates and this attachment pulls the chromosome during the cell division. So now let's classify the chromosomes on the basis of position of centromere. So there are 4 types of chromosomes. Let us discuss them individually. So the classification of chromosomes is based on the position of centromere. Centromere is the primary constriction. There are 4 types of chromosomes on this basis. The first one is metacentric chromosome. From meta, just remember this M. M stands for middle. That means the constriction is present at the right middle of the chromosome. So we have middle centromere, and this middle centromere divides the chromosome into 2 equal halves. They both are equal. So now let's see another type of chromosome, that is submetacentric chromosome. That is Sub means slightly away from the middle. The chromosome is slightly away from the center. Thus, we can see in this diagram, one arm is shorter arm in comparison to the other arm that is longer, and this is the centromere. That is a primary constriction, and this chromosome is called as submetacentric chromosome. Now let's see the third type of chromosome, that is acrocentric chromosome. That means the centromere in this type of chromosome is situated close to the end. The centromere here, this is the centromere, is situated towards one end. So this results in one extremely short and other very long arm. This is very long arm of the chromosome, and this type of chromosomes in which one arm is short, another arm is very long, is called as acrocentric chromosomes. Now the fourth type of chromosome we have are telocentric chromosome. From T, just remember terminal. That means the centromere is terminal here. So this diagram shows us a telocentric chromosome in which the centromere is terminal. So let's revise the four types of chromosomes on the basis of position of centromere. First of all, we have metacentric chromosome in which the centromere is in the middle, in which the two arms are equal. Second one is submetacentric chromosome in which the centromere is slightly away from the middle, in which one arm is shorter and the other arm is longer. Third is acrocentric in which the centromere is towards the end, in which results in one extremely short arm and one very long arm. And the fourth and last one is telocentric chromosome in which the centromere is terminal. Now let's talk about satellite. These are not the satellite which we send in space, but these satellites are related to chromosomes. So what do you mean by satellite? These are present in few chromosomes, unlikely like centromeres. Centromeres are present in every chromosome. So these are present only in few chromosomes. Second thing is these are non-staining. These cannot be stained. And the third thing is these are called as secondary constriction. Centromeres are called as primary constriction. These are satellites are called as secondary constriction. The centromeres are present in every chromosome. These are present in few chromosomes, and these are present at constant location. If satellite would be present, that would be present at constant location on a chromosome. These are not variable, and these give appearance of a small fragments. So in a chromosome, a non-staining region which gives the appearance of a small fragment which is present at the constant location in few chromosomes is called as satellite. Just this you need to remember about satellites. And the last topic under the discussion of nucleus is microbodies. Microbodies are many membrane bound vesicles containing various enzymes present in both plant and animal cells. From M you need to remember two things. First of all, microbodies means 2M. First is they are many. Second M means they are membrane bound. They contain many enzymes and they are present in both plants and animal cells. With this, we have completed the discussion of nucleus, chromosomes, chromatin fibers, the way they are condensed together. Hope you like this video. Thank you for watching the video.